The space station called Harmony Point was huge. It floated in the dark space between three star systems, and it was home to many different alien species. Some had scales, some had fur, some had shells, and some, the ones to join the galactic community, had soft pink skin and walked on two legs. The humans had arrived only 2 years ago. Myra Collins sat at her desk in the quiet biology lab. She was 29 years old, with brown hair that she kept in a messy ponytail and tired eyes that showed she had not slept much. Her computer screen glowed blue in the dark room, showing pictures of cells and long lists of numbers. She was supposed to be studying the blood samples from a sick trader, but her mind kept wandering. It was the middle of the night cycle on the station. Most beings were asleep in their quarters. The lights in the hallways had dimmed to save power, and the only sounds were the soft hum of machines and the distant whisper of air moving through vents. Myra liked these quiet hours. During the day, the station was loud and busy. Aliens of all kinds walked through the halls, speaking in languages that her translator Chip could barely keep up with. They looked at her with strange eyes, some curious, some afraid, some angry. Humans were still new here, still proving themselves. Many species did not trust them yet. She understood why. Humans had a bad reputation in the galaxy. Stories had spread about their wars, their weapons, their ability to destroy. The other species called them the violent ones, the destroyers, the beasts of Terra. When the first human ships had arrived at the galactic border, many had expected invasion. Instead, they had found explorers, scientists, and diplomats who just wanted to learn. It was confusing for everyone. Myra reached for her coffee cup and found it empty. She sighed and pushed back from her desk, stretching her arms above her head. Her back hurt from sitting too long. She needed to walk, to move, to do something other than stare at numbers she could not understand. She stood up and looked around her lab. It was small but comfortable, filled with machines and screens and shelves of samples in glass containers. On one wall hung pictures from Earth, photos of forests and oceans and mountains that she had not seen in 3 years. Sometimes she missed home, so much it hurt. But she had chosen to come here. She had chosen to leave everything behind for the chance to study alien life, to be part of something bigger than herself. And most days, she did not regret it. Most days. Tonight, though, she felt lonely. She felt small and far from home and very, very tired. She was about to go make more coffee when she heard the sound. It was faint at first, so quiet that she thought she had imagined it. But then it came again and again, a high, thin sound that made something deep in her chest tighten. It was crying. Something was crying. Myra moved toward the door without thinking. The sound was coming from the hallway outside her lab, somewhere to the left. She stepped out into the dim corridor and looked around, trying to find the source. The hallway was empty. The doors to other labs were closed and dark, but the crying continued, getting louder as she walked toward it. She turned a corner and stopped. On the floor, pressed against the wall, was a small creature. It was covered in soft golden fur, with big round ears and a long, thin tail. Its eyes were huge and wet with tears, and its little body shook as it cried. It was no bigger than a house cat from Earth. Myra knew what it was immediately: a cub. They were a peaceful species from a planet called. They were known for their soft fur, their gentle nature, and their strong family bonds. They were also known for being very, very rare. Their population had been dropping for generations, and there were only a few million of them left in the whole galaxy. What was a cub doing alone, in a dark hallway in the middle of the night? Myra crouched down slowly, trying not to scare it. The cub looked up at her with those big wet eyes, and for a moment they just stared at each other. Then the cub opened its tiny mouth and let out another cry, a sound so full of fear and sadness that Myra felt her heart break. She did not think, she just moved. She reached out and picked up the cub, bringing it close to her chest. It was so light, so small, that she could feel every tremble of its tiny body. She pressed it against her, wrapping her arms around it, and began to make soft sounds, the kind of sounds that mothers had made to scared children since the beginning of time. The cub kept crying, but its body began to relax. It pressed closer to her, its small paws gripping her shirt, its face buried against her neck. She could feel its heart beating fast, like a tiny drum. She started to walk, rocking gently as she moved. She hummed a song her mother used to sing to her when she was small, a simple tune with no words. The sound filled the quiet hallway, mixing with the cub's cries until slowly, the crying began to stop. Myra did not know how long she walked. Time seemed to stretch and blur. All she knew was the small, warm body against her chest, the soft fur under her fingers, the tiny breaths that gradually became slower and calmer. When she finally stopped walking, the cub was asleep. She looked down at it, at its peaceful face and its closed eyes, and felt something she could not name. It was like love, but bigger. It was like protection, but deeper. It was something ancient and powerful, something that lived in her bones. She was still standing there, holding the sleeping cub, when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw an adult running toward her. He was larger than the cub, about the size of a medium dog, with the same golden fur but streaked with silver. His eyes were wild with panic, and he was making sounds that her translator rendered as desperate pleas. "She is gone," he was saying. "My daughter is gone. I cannot find her. Please, has anyone seen her? Please, please, please." Myra stepped forward and saw her. He saw the cub in her arms, and he froze. For a long moment, no one moved. They stared at his daughter sleeping peacefully against the human's chest. His eyes moved from the cub to Myra's face, then back to the cub. His whole body trembled. "She is safe," Myra said softly, speaking through her translator. "She was crying in the hallway. I found her and picked her up. She is just sleeping now." They made a sound that was half sob and half laugh. He rushed forward, then stopped, unsure. Myra understood. She crouched down and gently held out the sleeping cub. The father took his daughter carefully, cradling her against his own chest. His eyes never left Myra's face. She could see tears running through his golden fur. "I do not understand," he said. "She would not stop crying. Since her mother died, she cries and nothing helps. How did you make her stop? What did you do?" Myra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I held her. I walked with her and sang to her. That is all." They shook his head. "That is not all. Our healers tried to hold her. I tried to hold her. She only cried harder." She looked up at Myra with wonder in his eyes. "What are you?" "I am human," Myra said simply. There was silent. Then he bowed his head, a gesture of deep respect. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for saving my daughter. My name is, I am in your debt forever." Myra bowed her head in return. "My name is Myra, and you owe me nothing. I just did what anyone would do." But that was not true, and they both knew it. What Myra had done was not common. It was not normal. It was something that most species in the galaxy could not do or would not think to do. Looked at his sleeping daughter one more time. Then he looked at Myra. "Will you come with me?" he asked. "There is something I must tell you, something important." Myra hesitated. She thought about her work waiting in the lab, about the samples she needed to study, about all the reasons she should say no. But then she looked at its face, at the hope and fear and gratitude mixed together, and she nodded. "Yes," she said, "I will come." They walked through the quiet station together, the human and the with his sleeping child. They passed closed doors and empty corridors, moving through the dim light until they reached a part of the station Myra had never visited before. It was the quarter, a small section set aside for their species. The walls here were painted in warm colors, oranges and reds and yellows, and the air smelled sweet, like flowers from a distant world. Soft music played from somewhere, a gentle melody that seemed to match the beating of Myra's heart. Led her to a door and pressed his paw against a panel. The door slid open, revealing a small apartment filled with cushions and blankets and soft things. It looked like a nest, Myra thought, a place made for comfort. They went inside and carefully laid his daughter on a pile of cushions. The cub shifted in her sleep but did not wake. Her little paws curled, and she made a small sound of contentment. Watched her for a long moment, then he turned to Myra. "Please," he said, gesturing to a cushion. "Sit, rest, I will make tea." Myra sat down on the cushion, sinking into its softness. She watched as moved around the small kitchen area, preparing a drink with practiced hands. His movements were slow and careful, like someone who was very tired but refused to stop. When the tea was ready, he brought her a cup. It was warm in her hands, and when she sipped it, she tasted something like honey and mint together. It was good. Sat across from her, his own cup untouched. He looked at his daughter sleeping on the cushions, then at Myra. Her name is Sira, he said. She is 2 years old. Her mother died 3 weeks ago in an accident on a transport ship. Since then, Sira has not stopped crying. She does not eat well. She does not sleep well. The healers say there is nothing physically wrong with her. They say she is grieving and that only time will help. He paused, his voice breaking. But I am afraid time will not help. I am afraid I will lose her too. Myra felt her heart squeeze. I am so sorry, she said. Losing someone you love is the hardest thing in the world. Nodded, feel deeply, he said. We form bonds that last our whole lives. When those bonds are broken, it hurts in ways that are hard to explain. Sira has lost her mother, the person she was closest to in all the universe. Her heart is broken, and I do not know how to fix it. He looked at Myra with those big golden eyes. But you did something tonight. You held her and she stopped crying. She slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. He leaned forward. How did you do that? Myra thought about the question. It was not easy to explain. What she had done was not magic. It was not science. It was something older and simpler than both. Humans are social creatures, she said slowly. We evolved in groups. Our bobbies are born helpless, unable to walk or eat or do anything on their own. They need constant care for years, so we developed ways to comfort them. We hold them close, we rock them, we sing to them, we let them feel our heartbeat and our warmth. It calms them down, it makes them feel safe. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I think your daughter felt my heartbeat tonight. I think she felt my warmth and heard my voice and knew that someone was there. Someone who would not let her go. And that was enough to let her relax, to let her sleep. Stared at her. You mean this is normal for humans? This is something you all do? Myra nodded. Yes, every human parent does this. Every human who has ever cared for a child. It is instinct. It is in our nature. Was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was soft with wonder. The galaxy calls you the violent ones. They say you are dangerous, that you are destroyers, that you are to be feared. But what you did tonight was not violent. What you did tonight was the gentlest thing I have ever seen. He reached out and touched her hand with his paw. His fur was soft and warm. I think the galaxy has you wrong, he said. I think there is more to humans than war and weapons. I think there is something in you that the rest of us have forgotten or never had. Something precious. Myra felt tears prick her eyes. She did not trust herself to speak, so she just squeezed his paw gently. They sat together in silence for a while, drinking their tea and watching little Sira sleep. The music played softly in the background, and the warm colors of the room wrapped around them like a blanket. Finally spoke again. I must ask you something, he said. It is a big thing, and I understand if you say no, but I must ask. Myra nodded. Ask. Took a deep breath. Will you help me? He said, not just tonight, but in the days to come. Sira needs something I cannot give her. She needs the kind of comfort that you showed her. I do not know why she responds to you when she does not respond to me, but she does. He looked at her with desperate hope. Will you help me save my daughter? Myra looked at the sleeping cub, at her tiny paws and her soft fur and her peaceful face. She thought about her work, her research, all the things she was supposed to be doing. She thought about how complicated this would make her life. Then she looked at the love and fear in his eyes, and she knew there was only one answer she could give. Yes, she said, I will help. Closed his eyes and bowed his head. When he looked up again, tears were streaming down his face. Thank you, he whispered, thank you. They talked late into the night, making plans. Myra would come to visit every day, spending time with Sira, holding her, walking with her, doing all the things that seemed to calm her. Would watch and learn, hoping that he could eventually do the same. Together, they would try to heal the little cub's broken heart. When Myra finally left the quarter, the station's lights were beginning to brighten for the morning cycle. She walked back to her lab through the waking hallways, past aliens who were just starting their day. Some of them looked at her strangely. A human coming from the section was unusual, but Myra did not care. She had something more important to think about. She had a child to save. The days that followed were hard but good. Every morning, Myra woke early and went to her lab to work on her research. Then in the afternoon, she walked to the quarter and spent hours with Sira. At first, the cub was shy and scared. She would hide behind cushions and peek out at Myra with those big wet eyes. But slowly, day by day, she began to trust. Myra learned her language, the soft chirps and hums that used to communicate. She learned the songs that mothers sang to their children. She learned the games they played, the foods they liked, the way they curled up together when they slept. And through it all, she held Sira. She held her close, letting the cub feel her heartbeat and her warmth. She rocked her and sang to her and whispered soft words in her ear. She did all the things that human mothers had done for thousands and thousands of years. It worked. Sira began to eat again. She began to sleep through the night. The sad, empty look in her eyes slowly filled with light, with curiosity, with joy. She started to play again, chasing toys around the room and pouncing on cushions. She started to laugh, a sound like tiny bells that made everyone who heard it smile. Watched all of this with growing amazement. He tried to learn what Myra was doing, to copy her movements and her songs. And slowly, he began to succeed. He learned to hold his daughter the way Myra did, close against his chest with his paw making slow circles on her back. He learned to rock her gently, to hum softly, to be the anchor that kept her safe. Word of what was happening spread through the station. The community heard first. They came to this apartment to see the miracle for themselves, to watch the human woman calm the grieving cub. They asked questions, so many questions about humans and their ways of caring for children. Myra answered as best she could. She explained about touch and warmth and presence. She explained about the bond between parent and child, about the power of simply being there. She explained that humans were soft creatures who needed each other to survive. They listened with wonder in their eyes. Then other species heard. The with their blue skin and 4 arms, the who looked like walking trees, the who were small and quick and covered in scales. They all came to see, to ask, to learn. And Myra realized something important. The galaxy was lonely. Not all of it, of course. Many species had families and communities and strong bonds with each other, but many others had forgotten how to connect. They had become isolated, separate, alone. They had lost the old ways of touching and holding and being together. The humans could teach them. One evening, about 2 months after that first night, Myra was walking through the station with Sira in her arms. The cub had grown bigger and stronger, but she still liked to be carried sometimes. She was tucked into the front pocket of Myra's hoodie, her favorite place, with just her little face peeking out. They passed a group of traders standing in the hall. One of them, a tall female with deep blue skin, stopped and stared. "Is that a?" she asked, her translator making her voice sound flat and mechanical. Myra nodded. Yes, her name is Sira. They stepped closer, bending down to look at the cub. Sira looked back at her with curious eyes but did not seem afraid. "She is in your clothing," they said. "Why?" Myra smiled. "She likes it there. It is warm and soft and she can hear my heartbeat." There was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have heard stories about humans, about how you care for children. Is it true that you hold them close like this, that you carry them against your bodies?" "Yes," Myra said. "It is something we have always done." They looked at Sira, then at Myra. "We do not do this," she said. "Children are raised in groups, looked after by caretakers. We do not carry them or hold them." She paused. "Perhaps we should." She walked away without another word, but Myra saw something in her eyes. Something like longing, something like hope. That night, Myra thought about what she had seen. She thought about all the species on the station, all the different ways they lived and raised their children. She thought about the loneliness she had sensed, the hunger for connection that seemed to exist everywhere she looked. She thought about what humans could offer. Not weapons or war, not violence or destruction, something much simpler and much more powerful. Touch, warmth, presence, love. The next day, she went to talk to the station commander. Commander Vex was a tall and thin with bark-like skin and leaves growing from his head. He had been in charge of Harmony Point for 20 years and had seen many things, but he had never seen a human walk into his office looking quite so determined. "Dr. Collins," he said, his voice like rustling branches. "What can I do for you?" Myra took a deep breath. "I want to start a program," she said, "a program for all species on the station." Vex tilted his head. "We already have services," he said. "I know," Myra said, "but what I am thinking is different. I want to teach other species about human methods of infant care, about holding and rocking and singing, about touch and warmth and presence." She paused. "I think it could help a lot of people." Vex was quiet for a long moment. His leaves rustled softly as he thought. "This is unusual," he said finally. "Humans have been part of the galactic community for only 2 years. Many species still do not trust you. And now you want to teach them how to care for their children." "Yes," Myra said, "that is exactly what I want." Vex studied her. His eyes were deep and old, like pools of dark water. "Why?" he asked. Myra thought about Sira, about the way the cub had stopped crying in her arms that first night. She thought about the hope and gratitude in his eyes. She thought about the trader with longing in her gaze. "Because it is what we are good at," she said. "Humans are not just warriors. We are not just destroyers. We are also carers. We are also protectors. We have been holding our children close for millions of years, keeping them safe with our bodies and our warmth." She looked at Vex steadily. "Let us share that gift with the galaxy." Vex was silent for a very long time. Then slowly he nodded. "Very well," he said. "I will approve your program. Let us see what happens." The program started small. Myra called it the Warm Place. At first, only a few aliens came, and Sira, of course. A few other who had heard the stories, a trader who was curious, a family whose youngest child would not stop crying. Myra taught them what she knew. She showed them how to hold children close, how to rock them gently, how to make soft sounds that calmed frightened hearts. She explained the science behind it, the way touch released chemicals in the brain that reduced stress and increased bonding. But mostly she just showed them. She held children of a dozen different species in her arms. She walked with them, sang to them, let them feel her heartbeat. And almost always they calmed down. Almost always they relaxed. Almost always they fell asleep. Word spread. More aliens came, then more, then more. Within 6 months, the Warm Place had its first room. They moved to a bigger space, then a bigger one. Other humans on the station volunteered to help. Daniel Park, a teacher, Casey, an engineer, Sam, a doctor. They all learned to do what Myra did, to hold and rock and sing and comfort. The program became famous throughout the station, then throughout the sector, then throughout the galaxy. Reports were sent to the Galactic Council. Scientists came to study what was happening. Journalists came to tell the story. Everyone wanted to know how humans, the violent ones, had become the galaxy's best babysitters. Myra did not care about the fame. She cared about the children. She watched cubs learn to trust again after losing their mothers. She watched Bobbies relax in arms that had never held them before. She watched younglings stop crying when a warm human hand rubbed their backs. She watched miracles happen every day. And through it all, Sira was at her side. The little cub had grown into a happy, healthy child. She called Myra by a word that meant something like other mother. She followed Myra everywhere, helped with the younger children, showed them that humans could be trusted. 1 year after that first night in the hallway, Myra stood in the center of the Warm Place and looked around. The room was full of children of all species, playing and laughing and sleeping. Human caretakers moved among them, holding the scared ones, comforting the sad ones, playing with the happy ones. Alien parents stood at the edges of the room, watching with wonder in their eyes. And in Myra's hoodie pocket, tucked against her chest where she could feel her heartbeat, Sira dozed peacefully. "You know," said a voice behind her, "when I first heard about this place, I thought it was a joke." Myra turned. Security chief was standing there, a massive with bark covered in scars from a long career keeping the station safe. He had been one of the biggest critics of humans when they first arrived, warning everyone that they could not be trusted. "And now," Myra asked, Watched a human teacher rock a crying baby until it fell asleep. Now he said slowly, I think I was wrong about your species. I think we all were. He looked at Myra, and for the first time since she had known him, his face showed something like respect. You are not the violent ones, he said. You are something else entirely, something the galaxy has never seen before. What is that? Myra asked. Thought for a moment. Then he said, the gentle ones, the ones who hold others close when they are afraid, the ones who give warmth to those who are cold, the ones who teach the rest of us how to be soft. He paused. The galaxy needs that, he said, more than you know. Myra smiled and looked down at Sira sleeping in her pocket. The cub's tiny paws curled and uncurled as she dreamed. Thank you, Myra said. That means a lot. Nodded and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of children and caretakers. Myra watched him go, then turned back to the room. There was so much work to do. So many children to help, so many parents to teach, so many species to reach. The galaxy was vast and lonely, and she was just one human with a warm heart and a willingness to hold others close. But it was a start. She reached down and gently stroked Sira's soft fur. The cub made a small sound of contentment and snuggled deeper into the pocket. Come on, little one, Myra whispered. Let us go see who needs us today. She walked into the crowd of children, and they reached for her with dozens of different hands and paws and claws. She smiled and knelt down among them, letting them climb on her and hug her and press close. This was what humans were meant to do, not destroy, not conquer, but hold, comfort, love. The galaxy was beginning to understand. And it was just the beginning. 3 years passed. The warm place grew from a single room to an entire section of the station. Then it spread to other stations, other planets, other systems. Human specialists traveled across the galaxy, teaching aliens what they knew about touch and warmth and presence. They were the first to adopt human methods completely. Their population, which had been declining for generations, began to stabilize. Scientists discovered that bobbies who were held close and rocked regularly had stronger immune systems and healthier brains. The species began to recover. Other species followed. They reformed their group system, adding human-style individual care. They built special warm rooms where parents could hold their children against their cold-blooded bodies. They who had never touched their young at all began to carry them in slings made of woven leaves. The galaxy changed. Not all at once, and not without resistance. Some species thought the humans were trying to spread their culture to make everyone act like them. Some worried that ancient traditions would be lost. Some simply did not trust the violent ones to touch their children. But slowly, year by year, the resistance faded. The evidence was too strong. The benefits were too clear. Children who were held grew healthier. Parents who held their children felt happier. Families grew stronger. Communities grew closer. And at the center of it all was Myra Collins. She was not the only human doing this work. Hundreds of others had joined her, spreading across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. But she was the one who had started it, the one who had picked up a crying cub in a dark hallway and changed everything. She was 50 years old now. Her brown hair had turned gray at the temples, and lines had appeared around her eyes. But she still worked at the warm place every day, still held children in her arms, still taught new parents the old human ways. And Sira was always at her side. The little cub had grown into a full adult, a beautiful with golden fur that shone in the light. She had children of her own now, 2 tiny cubs named and Kip who loved to be carried in Myra's hoodie pocket. Some things never changed. One evening, as the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Myra sat in the main room of the warm place. The children had all gone home, and the space was quiet. She was tired in a good way, the kind of tired that came from a day well spent. Sira came and sat beside her. They leaned against Myra's side, her fur warm and soft. Do you remember, Sira asked, the night we met? Myra smiled. I remember. You were crying in the hallway. I was so scared, Sira said. I had lost my mother and the world was cold and empty. I thought I would never feel warm again. She looked up at Myra with those big golden eyes. And then you picked me up, she said, and suddenly I was not alone. Suddenly there was a heartbeat against my ear and warmth all around me. Suddenly I was safe. Myra reached out and stroked Sira's fur, just as she had done thousands of times over the years. I just did what felt right, she said. I did not think about it. I know, Sira said. That is what makes it so amazing. For you, it was instinct, it was natural, it was just what humans do. She paused, but for me, it was a miracle. They sat together in the quiet room, looking out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of beings were holding their children close. Millions of beings were learning to give warmth and receive comfort. Millions of beings were discovering what humans had always known. You changed everything, Sira said softly. You know that, right? Myra shook her head. I did not change anything. I just showed people what they already had inside them, the ability to love, the desire to protect, the need to hold others close. She smiled. Those things exist in every species. I just helped them remember. Sira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, my daughter wants to learn how to work here. She wants to help children the way you helped me. Myra felt her heart swell. Really? Yes, she says that when she grows up, she wants to be just like her human grandmother. Sira looked at Myra with love in her eyes. That is what she calls you, you know, human grandmother. Tears prickled at Myra's eyes. She blinked them away and smiled. I would be honored to teach her, she said. They sat together as the station spun slowly through the darkness of space. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. But here, in this small room, there was warmth. There was love. There was the simple, ancient power of beings who cared for each other. The galaxy had called humans the violent ones. They had expected war and destruction. They had prepared for conquest and bloodshed. Instead, they had found something they did not expect. They had found gentleness. They had found warmth. They had found a species that held others close when they were afraid, that gave comfort to those who suffered, that taught the universe how to be soft. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had hugged it. And the galaxy, slowly and gratefully, had hugged them back. In a small apartment in the quarter, sat with his on his lap, and Kip were chattering about their day, about the games they had played and the friends they had made. They showed him a picture they had drawn, a messy scribble of colors that they said was their family. There was Golden and smiling. There was Sira tall and proud. There were in Kip themselves 2 small balls of fur. And there in the center of the picture was Myra, the human grandmother, the one who had started it all. Looked at the picture for a long time. Then he hugged his close, feeling their small hearts beat against his chest. Let me tell you a story, he said. A story about a night many years ago when a human found a crying cub in a dark hallway. And Kip settled in to listen, their eyes wide with attention, and began to tell the story of how a single act of kindness had changed everything. How a simple gesture of holding and comforting had spread across the galaxy like ripples in water. How the violent ones had become the gentle ones, not through force or conquest, but through love. It was a good story. It was a true story. And it was only the beginning. The next morning, Myra woke to find a message on her console. It was from the Galactic Council, the governing body that oversaw all the species in the known universe. The message was simple. It said, Dr. Myra Collins, you have been nominated for the Award of Galactic Unity. This is the highest honor the Council can bestow on any individual, given to those who have made exceptional contributions to peace and cooperation between species. The ceremony will be held on the Council in 3 months. Your presence is requested. Myra read the message 3 times, not quite believing what she was seeing. The Award of Galactic Unity. No human had ever received it. No human had even been nominated. It was the kind of honor that went to diplomats who had ended wars, to scientists who had cured plagues, to leaders who had united nations. Not to a biologist who liked to hold children. She was still staring at the message when Sira arrived at her door. I heard the news, Sira said, her golden eyes bright with excitement. Everyone is talking about it. A human nominated for the Award of Galactic Unity. Myra shook her head. It does not seem real. It is real. Sira came and sat beside her, taking her hand in both paws. And it is right. You deserve this honor more than anyone I know. I did not do anything special, Myra said. I just held children. Anyone could do that. Sira smiled. That is exactly what makes it special, she said. You do not think it is anything remarkable. You do not understand why the whole galaxy is amazed. Because to you, holding a scared child is just what you do. It is just who you are. She squeezed Myra's hand. That is why you changed everything, Sira said. Because you showed us that love does not have to be complicated. It does not have to be earned or deserved or calculated. It can be as simple as picking up someone who is crying and holding them close. Myra felt tears running down her cheeks. She did not try to wipe them away. I love you, she said to Sira. You know that, right? I know, Sira said. And I love you too, my other mother, my human grandmother, my friend. They hugged, the human and the two beings from different worlds who had become family. And in that moment, all the awards and honors in the galaxy seemed small compared to this, compared to the simple power of being held by someone who cared. The ceremony was 3 months away. There was work to do, preparations to make, speeches to write. But for now, Myra just sat with her daughter and let herself be grateful for everything that had led to this moment. A crying cub in a dark hallway. A heartbeat and a warm embrace. A galaxy learning to be soft. It was more than she had ever dreamed of. It was more than she had ever hoped. And it had all started because she had done what humans had always done. She had held someone close. On the other side of the station, Security Chief was making his evening patrol. He walked through the halls with his measured steps, checking doors and scanning for trouble. It had been a quiet day, like most days were now. The station was peaceful. The species lived in harmony. There had not been a serious incident in months. Remembered when things had been different. When he was young, the station had been a place of tension and conflict. Species did not trust each other. Fights broke out in the hallways. The security teams worked constantly to keep the peace. Now children of different species played together in the corridors. Parents stopped to chat with neighbors they had never talked to before. The warm place had become the heart of the station, a meeting ground for all beings. Things had changed. Passed the window of the warm place and paused to look inside. The night shift was on duty, a young human man named Jake Carter who had been working there for 2 years. He was walking slowly around the room, rocking an infant in his arms. The little reptile was fast asleep, its cold blood warmed by the human's body heat. Jake looked up and saw watching. He smiled and waved. Waved back. He continued his patrol, thinking about everything that had happened since the humans arrived. He thought about his own prejudices, his own fears, his own certainty that the violent ones would bring destruction to the station. He had been wronged. So had everyone else. The humans had brought something the galaxy had not expected. Not war, but peace. Not violence, but gentleness. Not destruction, but healing. They had reminded everyone what it meant to care for each other, what it meant to hold others close, what it meant to be soft in a hard universe. Reached the end of his patrol route and turned to head back. As he walked, he found himself humming softly. It was a human song, one he had heard the caretakers sing at the warm place. He did not know all the words, but he knew the melody. It was a lullaby, a song for calming frightened children. And somehow it calmed him too. The stars continued their endless dance outside the station windows. The universe continued its slow expansion into infinity. Wars were fought and ended. Empires rose and fell. Life went on in all its strange and wonderful forms. But in the corners of the galaxy, something new was growing. Something gentle and warm. Something that spread from heart to heart like fire, like light, like hope. The humans called it love. And slowly, one hug at a time, the galaxy was learning to speak their language. Myra Collins sat in her apartment as the night cycle deepened. Sira had gone home to her own family, and the station was quiet. Through her window, she could see the stars stretching away forever into the dark. She thought about her life, about the choices she had made, about leaving Earth and coming to this place. about finding Sierra in that hallway, about everything that had followed. She had not planned any of it. She had not set out to change the galaxy. She had just done what felt right in the moment. She had just been human. Maybe that was the secret. Maybe that was the thing that no one had expected. Humans were not special because of their technology or their weapons or their cleverness. They were special because of something much simpler. They knew how to hold each other. They knew how to be there for each other. They knew that sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe was not a weapon or a machine or a great idea. Sometimes the most powerful thing was just a warm embrace. Myra smiled and closed her eyes. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more children to help, more parents to teach, more species to reach. But tonight she was content. Tonight she was grateful. Tonight she was exactly where she was supposed to be. A human among the stars, holding the galaxy close. And the galaxy held her back. The end of Part 1.